Papa, oh.
Miss ka na namin, Papa.
Ang kulit nyo ikaw ah. Paborito ka ni Daddy.
Ma, insulin ni Papa, oh.
Miss ka na namin, Papa.
And we are live. Good evening, guys. Hope everyone's having a great and safe night. Welcome to Life Matters. This is your Tita, and how are you, JD?
I'm good, Ren. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Life Matters.
What are the odds? No, just a couple of weeks back, we were talking about the possibility of us going back to the place that we love, ano? And next thing you know, we're pretty much locked down again, no? Ano ba naman?
Bubble, not lockdown.
Bubble, yeah. We call it, anong tawag natin ngayon?
NCR
NCR
plus bubble.
plus bubble. Yeah. Well, that's why tonight's episode, JD, is very special as we are going to talk about COVID 19 and more specifically the vaccines that are out there. So, without further ado, here's our guest for tonight.
Available na ang bakuna laban sa COVID-19. Ngunit marami pa rin sa atin ang may agam-agam tungkol rito. Ano-ano nga ba ang mga risks sa pagpapabakuna laban sa COVID-19? Why do we have to #get vaccinated? Sasagutin lahat yan ni Dr. Carl Evans Henzon, licensed physician and infectious disease specialist and director for Hospital Infection Control and Epidemiology Center at the Medical City. Tonight, on Life Matters.
Hi, Doc Carl.
Hi.
Magandang gabi po sa inyong lahat. Thank you for
Hi.
the invitation. Hi everyone.
Hi, Doc Carl. Good evening. Now, we know you have a very tight schedule, and you're here, and we are very much grateful for that. And just to let you know, we are very much thankful for all the sacrifices that you guys are doing, battling COVID 19 head on. And we really couldn't ask for anything more from the frontliners. And we just want to let you know that your safety is always included in our prayers, Doc.
Thank you very much for that.
Doc, kumustahin ko lang, kumusta ang situation ninyo sa Medical City?
Well, medical now, I think it feels as if we're back in July and August in the first wave, no? So the hospital is full again, and people need to wait in the emergency room for an ICU bed. So it's pretty difficult kasi this time around, we know the medicines to give, etc. Pero there's just really a lot of patients to take care of. So it's a very, very challenging situation down there sa emergency room namin. Even in the ICU, pero kasi I'm sure all the doctors and the anyone who's in a hospital who works in a hospital setting knows na ang emergency room talaga yung hotspot for any hospital, no? Kasi sila yung parang first line of defense, or else pag nagkagulo na sa ER, chaotic na sa buong hospital. So we're having challenges talaga in how to do bed management, etc. And I'm sure all the other hospitals are really facing the same challenges that we are.
Talagang nag-spike ang volume, Doc, no?
Yeah, for sure. Oh, kitang-kita niyo naman if you will look at the curves sa webpage ng DOH, there really is a true surge.
Yes. Doc, though tonight's episode is really for the vaccines, no? Doc, can you give us a refresher sa COVID-19 kasi considering the surge na nangyayari, baka kasi nakakalimutan na ng marami how serious this matter is.
Yeah. Okay. Yes, that's always a good place to start with any conversation. We need to be reminded of what the enemy is about. So COVID-19 is a virus, and if you will recall, bagong virus ito back in December of 2019. Kaya yung unang pangalan niya 2019 novel coronavirus. Novel meaning new. The thought or the theory is it made the jump at some point, from animals. What animal, we're not sure yet. It made the jump from animals to humans, and then started to cause infections in humans. Now, anytime na merong bago kasing virus na our immune system does not know, no, we are considered susceptible. And if it's a brand new virus, the entire world is basically susceptible to this virus. No? So it very rapidly spread from the handful of cases in Wuhan, and then now to the pandemic that we know, as it is that we see now. No, we're also not sure how long immunity lasts to this virus. So there's so many things that we don't know about it. We also know that it is transmitted primarily by what's called droplets. No? So yung mga infected saliva natin, it depends on the size. The bigger particles of saliva, 5 micrometers and above, they're called droplets, and they usually drop to the floor within about 6 feet. Pero the lighter particles, the ones that are smaller, they're able to suspend in the air. So pwede silang mag-travel longer distances, yung tinatawag na airborne transmission or aerosol transmission. So those are the two major ways that we think COVID is transmitted. A third way might be what's called fomite transmission. So if you have a particle of saliva that dropped into a table, tapos hawakan mo, kinusot mo yung mata mo, you can also get infected that way. Pero scientists think na that's a relatively minor way to get COVID. So once we are familiar with those things, yung how it's transmitted, then yung ways to prevent yourself from getting it makes more sense. For example, because it is transmitted by droplets, you need to protect your mouth and your nose para hindi mo siya malanghap. No? In most cases, for use in the community, for example, a regular surgical mask or a cloth mask might work just as well. But for us in the hospital who see COVID patients, because there's a higher viral load, we need to use specialized masks that are able to filter more of these particles. So yun, it's important for us to remember how to protect ourselves. But by now, siguro kabisado na natin yan, di ba? Hand hygiene, alcohol hand rubs, or soap and water as frequently as you can. Masks and face shields, physical distancing. No? So sabi natin kanina, the way it's transmitted through droplet, most of it, within 6 feet, babagsak na siya. No? And that's the reason why you want to stay away about 6 feet from the next person.
The distance.
Exactly. Kasi ini-expect mo that the bigger saliva particles magfo-fall na to the floor. So lahat ng recommendations na yan, may basis yan on the biology of the virus. So I guess that's like maybe a quick overview of the virus or COVID.
So, Doc, on our topic naman tonight on vaccines. So, I'm sure a lot of our viewers are curious on how vaccines are developed and how do they really work?
And how?
How do they work, yung vaccines?
Okay. All right. So, how do they work? Okay, sige, let me just summarize that. I was thinking kasi if I needed to flash a slide, pero I think I can answer that mas succinctly, no? So vaccines in general, not just COVID vaccines, are the purpose of vaccines really is to develop immunity. Now, when we say immunity, it triggers a part of our body para mag-develop ng parang memory. Okay? So, whenever you encounter a virus or a bacteria, yung sundalo mo sa katawan, yung army that's supposed to protect you, which is the immune system, has a very complex way of fighting an infection. So sabihin natin, nalanghap mo, for example, chickenpox. No? When you inhale the chickenpox virus, the first time, you're going to get sick. You're going to get the rash and all that. No? Pero on the back end, minememorize na yan ng katawan. So, minememorize na siya ng body para the next time that you are exposed, you won't get sick anymore kasi alam niya ng labanan. So, the memorization process, doon pumapasok yung antibodies. No? So, what the immune system produces as to form part of the memory are antibodies. So antibodies will exist in our bloodstream, ready to pounce on the virus in case it occurs or it finds itself in our body, our system again.
Parang
Now,
trigger ng katawan, Doc.
yes, oo. So para if you get exposed to the virus again, hindi ka na magkakasakit. Alam niya ng labanan and to flush it out. So that's what happens in a natural infection. Now, a vaccine will provide that trigger rather than the actual disease. It will provide that trigger so that the memory forms without you having to get sick. Okay? So naiwasan mo na yung possible complications from the disease, no? Na protektahan ka pa. That's why I think in my opinion and as a physician, as a doctor, no? I think vaccines are the most useful. It's a very beautiful concept, no, because it affords protection. It's very safe, no. Tapos you get to avoid the complications or the possible complications of disease when you get it. So that's how vaccines work.
So, Doc, just a follow-up question. So, given what you said on how vaccines work in our body, how are they developed? What is the process of developing
Okay.
vaccines?
For this one, I think I'll call, kasi that's a very frequent question, no? If we can flash slide 6 para we have a better understanding of how it happens. Slide 6. That's not. Maybe, yeah, that one. Okay. So, kasi this is a very common question because people are worried na baka the vaccines were developed too fast, no?
Yes.
Baka minadali and baka hindi siya masyadong safe. So, the slide that you see in your screens now, yung top part, that represents the usual process of vaccine development. No? So, it starts with an idea na kung baka pwede nating gumawa tayo ng bakuna para maprotektahan against, say, chickenpox. No? So, may exploratory phase yan at may preclinical phase, meaning they will do it all in test tubes, kanyan, and then see if it will work on an animal model. And then, if they show that it works on an animal model, they will proceed to what's called phase 1 trials. Phase 1 trials are human trials na. Pero these are healthy people, and then they are given the vaccine, no? Tapos, titignan kung, number 1, kung safe. Number 2, kung nagde-develop pa talaga tayo ng antibodies when exposed to the vaccine. If ma-prove in phase 1 na okay siya, pupunta siya sa phase 2, where you have a couple of hundred people, also healthy, no? Very well screened to receive the vaccine. Titignan din doon kung una, kung safe, at pangalawa, kung nagde-develop ng antibodies. So pareho halos ng question ng phase 1. But this one in more people. And then, kapag pasado sa phase 2, they will then proceed to phase 3, where you enroll thousands and thousands. No? Mahina ang 10,000 in a phase 3 trial. So what happens in a phase 3 trial, you get two groups. One group is given the vaccine. The other group is given a blank or a placebo. No? So in most trials, tubig asin ang binigay. No? Or saline. So and then so those groups are given whatever products they're scheduled to receive, and then they're made to live their lives. Tapos bibilangin ngayon ilan yung nagkasakit. And then i-compare yung what's called vaccine efficacy. Okay? So pag nakita na efficacious yung bakuna and safe, isa-submit lahat ng datos to the FDA. The FDA will now evaluate and approve. Pag na-approve, tsaka pa lang magmamanufacture. And if you will see, that entire traditional timeline is about 10 to 15 years. Remember that we are in a pandemic. So hindi pwede, we cannot afford to follow the usual process. No? So what happened? Yung exploratory and preclinical phase, madami ng datos dyan na based on other diseases, nagawa na nila yung platforms na ginamit. For example, yung vector virus, no, yung platform na ginamit sa AstraZeneca vaccine, nagamit na yan sa Ebola, na test na yan before. So alam natin that it works. So na-shorten ngayon yung exploratory and preclinical phase. And then they were able to proceed immediately to clinical trials. Yung clinical trials, instead of a sequential, step-by-step, phase 1, phase 2, phase 3, pinagsabay-sabay yan. Merong iba nagre-report magkasabay phase 1 and 2, yung iba magkasabay phase 2 and 3. But the point is, meron pa rin distinct na phase 1 study, distinct na phase 2, and distinct na phase 3, pero magkakasabay silang ginawa. No? And then, ang isa pang nangyari na bago is yung FDA, instead of waiting for all the phase 3 data to finish, nag-start na silang mag-evaluate sa simula pa lang. No? Kasi lahat tayo nagmamadali eh. We need to protect the most vulnerable, no? So the manufacturing companies were eager to put out a safe and effective vaccine. The FDA people were eager to approve a vaccine kasi we needed to, people were dying. So we needed a product that really worked. So sabi ng FDA natin, tsaka ng US, tsaka ng WHO, kailangan lang 2 months of safety data, vaccine efficacy of 50%. No? Kaya ngayon, naka-review agad yung FDA ng data. Ang unang-unang na-approve is Pfizer, di ba? Alam natin yan. Kasi Pfizer, may 2 months of safety data sila, tapos nakapakita nila na effective yung bakuna, no, efficacious yung bakuna, nakakuha agad sila ng preliminary approval. So yung preliminary approval, yun yung tinatawag natin na emergency use authorization, EUA. No? So the EUA is a preliminary approval for the government to give the vaccine to only to specific groups of people. Hindi pa pwedeng general population. Kasi hindi pa tapos yung buong phase 3 eh. And that is why nandiyan pumapasok yung prioritization ng gobyerno. Kasi ang EUA pwede lang ibigay in specific groups. Though only those with the highest risk of getting COVID-19. No? Kasi pag nagtimbang ka, risk-benefit assessment. So, may bakuna, it works, no? Pero we do not have the complete safety information yet. So, pag tinimbang mo yung small risk na yon versus the benefit that a frontline healthcare worker will get from the vaccine, mas matimbang yung benefit. But the same scenario or the same analogy does not exist in someone who, say, a housewife, hindi naman nagpupunta sa ospital. So when you do a risk-benefit assessment, it won't be as strong towards the vaccine. So sa kanila, maybe they can wait until there's more safety data.
Sorry, Doc, just to follow up with that. Is that the reason why for the Philippines we prioritize frontline healthcare workers? Because you said it's given to a specific group of people first.
Yes, all over the world, all over the world, ang sinimulan nila lahat frontline workers. Mapa-America yan or Europe, ang unang binigyan ay frontline workers kasi kami yung nag-aalaga ng mga may sakit. So we carry the highest risk, a risk that's even higher than senior citizens. So ang senior citizens, when they get sick, they have a very high chance of developing severe COVID. Pero mas mataas pa rin yung risk namin kasi kami talaga yung nagte-take care ng patients, nag-i-interview sa kanila, we listen to their lungs, we intubate them. So all over the world, ang una talagang binigyan are the frontline healthcare workers. Kasi yung risk-benefit assessment for that group of people will weigh heavily towards the benefits of the vaccine much more than the risks
The
involved
risks.
in getting a relatively unknown product.
So, Doc, you mentioned kanina that supposedly vaccines are developed 10 to 15 years, di ba?
Mm.
Pero, um, even though na hindi nasunod yung period na yon, no? Parang sinasabi mo, Doc, na hindi rin tama na sabihin na the vaccines now were hastily made. Kasi dumaan din siya sa
Well,
tamang
I guess
process.
yes. So the entire prescribed process was followed, but I guess the better
Yes.
term is accelerated, no? So,
Accelerated, yes.
accelerated. So, may phase 1, may phase 2, may phase 3 data. The safety data is there. Hindi pa kumpleto yung safety data ng phase 3, no? Pero nandyan yan. Sinusuri yan. Continuous ang review ng FDA. And that's why an EUA can be changed at any time. For example, ang Sinovac, ang sabi nila una, ang inaral nila sa Brazil ay 18 to 59-year-olds lang. No? And now I saw, so ang approval ng EUA is, ang approval ng EUA is pang 18 to 59 lang kasi yun lang yung may datos, no? May data. But now the company is reporting daw na it seems that they tested it on children already and they seem to have safety and efficacy data on children. So, if they submit that to our FDA and the FDA says, okay, mukhang legit yung data, mukhang okay siya, papaguhin nila yung EUA ngayon to say, okay, we can now give it to this group of people. Parang gano'n. Ganon din sa
So,
ibang mga bakuna.
Yes. So, the variables are always changing, Doc, no? Because of the situation, Doc.
Correct. Yes.
Doc, dito sa atin sa Pilipinas, syempre naririnig natin andyan ng Sinovac, andyan ng AstraZeneca. Pero dito ba sa atin, ano na ba talaga ang approved na gamitin para sa ating mga mamamayan?
Okay, so right now, I know of, I might miss vaccines kasi. We have Sinovac approved, and then, or not approved, may EUA for Sinovac, may EUA for AstraZeneca, and the third that I know is my EUA for Gamaleya, yung Sputnik V, no, yung Russian vaccine. Yeah. So alam ko nabigyan na ng EUA ng Pilipinas yun. I haven't heard about any other vaccine with an approval. No? So yung tatlo.
So, Doc, you mentioned the three. I'm sure there are other brands also of vaccines that's also available, but not yet approved for the Philippines. So,
Yeah, kasi sorry, go ahead.
So generally, because some people prefer one brand over the other, in general ba talaga, are there fundamental differences between the brands of the vaccines?
Okay, that's a good question kasi it goes into brand shopping, no? Parang mamimili ka ba talaga ng brands? And one of the parameters that we use to determine, no, kung is one brand better than another ay yung vaccine efficacy, no? So sabi, early report said ang Pfizer had a 95% vaccine efficacy, which frankly I think surprised even the experts. Remember, ang requirement lang is 50% vaccine efficacy, sabi ng WHO. And then suddenly here comes a vaccine that's 95% efficacious. No? Even si Dr. Fauci was surprised. Tapos, lumabas na yung iba. Moderna came out with their own 94 point something. And then AstraZeneca said ang vaccine efficacy nila sa 70%. So parang even if it was very, very efficacious, parang hindi na siya as maganda kaysa dun sa nauna. Pero that brings us to the question of ano ba talaga yung ibig sabihin ng vaccine efficacy. And for this, I wanna flash slide 7 because I think that we need to have a better understanding of what vaccine efficacy really means. No? So vaccine efficacy, we need to understand one thing, what's called the attack rate. Okay, yung attack rate that's inherent to the disease. Okay, so ano yan, parang characteristic siya ng infection. Assume natin in this example that an infection has an attack rate of 20%. Assumption lang yan, no? So the screen, the figure on your left, yung nakalagay unvaccinated. Sabihin natin meron kang 100 people in a community completely susceptible to the virus, and the virus has an attack rate of 20%. Ilan ang ini-expect mo magkakasakit dun sa grupo na yun? So 20. Okay, that's indicated by the red circles there. All right? So yun ang mangyayari sa isang community na walang bakuna, tapos ang attack rate ay 20%. Ngayon, if the virus has an attack rate of 20%, pero yung komunidad na sa kanan, nabakunahan sila lahat, 100. And the vaccine has a vaccine efficacy of 90%. Anong ibig sabihin nun? Ang vaccine efficacy is reduction in the number of the diseased population. So it's like saying there is a 90% reduction from the 20 na nagkasakit. So what's a 90% reduction in the 20 people who got sick? Lalabas dalawa. 2. Diba? So 90% ibig sabihin you have a 10%, yung 10% of the population who got sick ay who got yung parang magkaka 10% ka na natitira, no? So 2 yung matitira. So hindi po siya ibig sabihin na 90% vaccinated or 90% vaccine efficacy ay 90% protection. Because if you really think about that statement, anong ibig sabihin ng 90% protection? You will expect na dapat 10 yung magkakaroon ng sakit in the vaccinated group. Diba? Kung 90% protection. So kung vaccine efficacy of 50% at ang understanding mo ng vaccine efficacy of 50% is 50% protection, what does that mean? Dapat 50 yung magkakasakit. But in the correct interpretation of vaccine efficacy, in the example of the 20 people who got sick, how many people are you expecting to get sick in the vaccinated? Dapat 10 lang. 10, correct. Yeah, so you got it. So if you really think about it, a 50% vaccine efficacy is not bad kasi out of the 100, 10 got sick. Out of the 100 people, only 10 got sick. Diba? In a 95% vaccine efficacy in our example here, 2 got sick. So in the phase 3 trials ng Pfizer, for example, kasi I say Pfizer kasi yun yung kabisado ko yung datos. So for Pfizer, they had 18,000 in the unvaccinated group and another 18,000 in the vaccinated group. No? So imagine niyo na lang itong setup na to na naka-flash screen. Pero instead of 100, 18,000. So nakita nila dun sa placebo group, 169 people out of the 18,000 got sick of COVID. No? Placebo yun, walang blanco, no? And in the vaccinated group, 9 of the 18,000 people got sick. Kaya siya naging vaccine efficacy of 95% kasi is 169 versus 9. No? So parang 95% reduction. But you still vaccinated 18,000 people. Diba? So a correct understanding of vaccine efficacy should lead you to conclude na even if the vaccine efficacy is 50%, it is still good protection for anyone. Okay? Did that answer your question?
Yes, Doc. And it's good that you explained it. Kasi the normal interpretation of people when you say 50% effective or 95%, 95% or 50% effective as to you.
You're good for
Also
95%. Parang
interpretation.
ganun.
So
Yeah.
that's a
Risk
vaccine
versus
efficacy kasi
Yeah.
it's a statistical term, it's a population based term. So it's a little difficult for lay people to understand.
Yes.
Pero a correct understanding is absolutely critical para you can make good decisions.
This illustration clearly explains it, Doc, no? Kasi dati, di ba, pag narinig mo na, I'll choose the 95 versus the 50 because I'll be protected like 95%. Ganun ang nagiging common na notion sa
Yeah.
vaccines, no? Yeah. Doc, babalikan ko lang kanina yung the process no, sa paggawa ng vaccine. Kasi naririnig namin palagi how in particular Sinovac was done and how Pfizer was done na magkaiba yung proseso nila. Which is very much nakakalito lalo na para sa isang layman. Can you explain that to us, Doc?
I'm not entirely sure what you mean by magkaiba yung process that happened.
Para sinasabi,
Pero go ahead.
Yung sinasabing Sinovac, parang pinatay yung virus and then
yung platform. Okay. Yeah, okay,
platform.
sige. Nagets ko na.
Yeah.
So, there are 4 major platforms na ginagamit ngayon to produce the COVID vaccines. No? So 4. Let me see if I remember all of them. The first one is the entire virus is given either buhay pero weakened or inactivated or dead. Okay? Pero buong virus ang binibigay. Alright? So that's one kind. The whole virus is given, pero there can be 2 subtypes. An alive virus that's weakened or dead virus, but the entire virus. Sinovac belongs to that exact example. It's an inactivated or dead virus. So you get the entire virus into your system that's dead. There is no vaccine at this time that's available na live attenuated. Some examples of a live attenuated virus, just to show na matagal na tong technology na to, is chickenpox, measles, mumps, rubella. Yung MMR virus, tsaka yung chickenpox virus. Those are examples of live attenuated. Inactivated Sinovac. No? The second is protein subunit. Ibig sabihin nun, you get just a particle, a piece of the virus that will induce an immune response. You package it into the vaccine and you give it to the patient. So it's just a particle. It's not alive, no, but the particle itself, the protein itself, will induce an immune response. I believe Novavax is an example of that. Don't quote me on that. The third kind is the viral vector vaccines. Ang viral vector is one of the newer ones, no? You use a transporter virus. Meron kang isang virus na gagamitin na parang vehicle to bring in the genetic material, no? The instruction manual. So, lahat ng cells natin, we all have DNA. And then, yung DNA natin, it produces what's called an RNA, and the RNA produces protein. So medyo technical yung information. Pero yung DNA natin, I think we're all familiar with that concept, no? So pag nag-split yun, it will form 2 different cells. So you get a piece of the DNA of the virus of SARS-CoV-2. The one that's where the instruction for producing the protein is. So ang protein of interest dito yung spike protein. Kasi yun yung madaling mag-induce ng immune response. So you want to expose the body to the spike protein pero ang ipoprovide mo is not the spike protein, but the instruction for how to make it. Okay? So, in the case of a viral vector vaccine, it's that piece of DNA that's packaged into the transporter virus, and the transporter virus is given to the patient. No? So para siyang
Not the actual virus, Doc, no?
not the actual virus, just the instruction manual. But in a viral vector, you're giving a different virus, a harmless virus, no? One that's known not to cause any disease in humans.
It's like a
Okay?
vehicle, parang ganun, Doc.
Yes. I like to think of it as an imperfect example of Trojan horse. But
Trojan
that's
horse, yeah.
para ganun. Pero yeah, there are so many bad
Makes sense. Yeah.
elements to that analogy. But you know,
Yeah.
you get the point.
Yeah.
The fourth kind is the mRNA vaccines. So sabi natin kanina ba, DNA, RNA, protein. So it's that middle part, that middle transition instruction manual. No? So instruction din siya, pero it's like the transition. So after mRNA kasi, protein na eh. No? So this time, yung instruction manual pa rin na ibibigay mo, but a different kind. mRNA na. Tapos yung mRNA, it's packaged into some fat cells, no, a lipid coating, and yun ang binibigay sa pasyente. But because mRNAs are quite unstable, they need special handling. So ang example nito, Pfizer and Moderna. Yung viral vector, ang example is AstraZeneca, Sputnik V or Gamaleya, yung Gamaleya virus, no? So yun yung four kinds. Kaya magkaiba ng platforms ang Sinovac and Astra. One is inactivated, the other is viral vector. But the end result is the same.
It's the same.
A piece of the virus will be kumbaga ipapakita yon sa immune system para mag-trigger ng immune response.
Doc, syempre alam natin na mga vaccines may mga side effect talaga yan eh. Even naman yung mga available na vaccines ngayon. How concerned should we be pagdating sa side effects?
Okay. So yung phase 3 trials is our main source of information about side effects. Remember, ang ginawa dito, diba, thousands of people got the vaccine, and an almost equal number will get saline. Tapos i-compare, no? And then doon natin malalaman kung ano yung mga side effects na binibigay ng bakuna. Dito papasok din yung concept of reactogenicity. Pag sinabing reactogenicity, so pag in-injectan ka ng bakuna, no? Ano nga siya, foreign body nga siya, di ba? So naturally, your immune response will attack that area where the vaccine was injected, because that's what you want to happen. So that when the immune system attacks that site where the vaccine was injected, it can get painful, it can get swollen, and it can turn red. No? So those are all expected findings. Pero sometimes the molecules that are produced in that site can leak into the system, causing fever, headache, body aches, generalized weakness. No? So those are all expected sequelae or symptoms that you can get after a vaccine, any vaccine, not just COVID vaccines. So whenever you get a flu vaccine, pwedeng mangyari yan, masakit yung arm mo for 1 or 2 days, and then you get better. So sanay na for those who get vaccines, sanay na tayo dyan sa side effects na yan. But sometimes there are rare side effects like allergies, for example. No? If there's a component in the vaccine that can trigger allergies in some people, then you will see that usually in the phase 3 trial. But sometimes the side effects are so rare that 20,000 people won't show it. You'll need to really roll it out into the worldwide population for you to pick up that 1 or 2 people who got a rare case. No?
Yes.
But the important thing here is there has to be a panel of experts who should determine if if a symptom or a disease is caused by the vaccine or not. If we can flash slide 10, please. Slide 10 shows you the data for AstraZeneca. No? So, ito yung datos ng side effect profile ng AstraZeneca in age 55 years old and above after the second dose. So, makikita mo sa pinakababa may nakalista: fever, fatigue, headache, chills, vomiting, diarrhea, muscle pain, joint pains. So, yun yung mga tinitignan nilang side effects. And then you will notice also na for each cluster, sabihin natin, leftmost is fever, you will see there Pfizer pala ito. BNT 162B2, no? Nakikita niyo doon? And then may katabi siya placebo. Oo. So, ang ibig sabihin niyan, 11% of people who got vaccinated ng Pfizer vaccine got fever and 0% developed fever. Okay? Now, let's take a look at diarrhea. So, yun na, may bilog dyan. Yung people who got the vaccine, yung BNT, 8% developed diarrhea. Pero, if you take a look at the group with the placebo, nabigyan ng blanco, saline lang ang binigay, 6% ang nagdevelop ng diarrhea. So, if you will blame the diarrhea on the vaccine, bakit may 6% na nagdevelop ng diarrhea sa placebo group?
Yes.
Diba? Yes. So doon pumapasok yung concept of chance. Kasi pwedeng nagkataon lang na nagdiarrhea yung 8% and 6% na yan. And it's not because of the vaccine. Yes, exactly, Ren. So, now you translate that into deaths. No? For example, yung nabalitaan natin sa Pfizer vaccine, there were several who were given sa Norway, namatay daw, several people in this nursing home, etc. Natakot agad mga tao, nakakamatay yung Pfizer vaccine. Pero, if the rates are compared between those who got the vaccine and those who, parang background rate, no? Walang difference, no? So ang conclusion ng experts in Norway, the vaccine didn't cause the deaths. The same din for ito yung mas bago, yung blood clots. No? 'Di ba sabi nila AstraZeneca daw is associated with blood clots kasi may mga tao na nakakuha ng bakuna and then developed a blood clot. But when they compared the people who got the vaccine versus those who hadn't received the vaccine, and yung background rates, no? What are the rates of developing a blood clot in the general population? Magkapareho sila in the same way that vaccine and placebo group develop the same numbers of diarrhea. So, ang conclusion is, hindi because of the vaccine, yung blood clots. So, anytime that there is a worrisome side effect, we need to take a step back and critically look at the evidence and say, is it really due to the vaccine? Or baka talagang nagkataon lang na nakuha nila yon right after a vaccination. No? So, kasi we feel that the vaccines are very, very important. Now, we cannot or we should not demonize. No? We should try our best to really kailangan if we accuse a vaccine of doing something, kailangan merong hard evidence to show na it really causes this. We're not saying na it will never happen, but there has to be an investigation and it has to be really studied well. And in the Philippines, there is a committee that does that, no? The National Adverse Event Following Immunization Committee. So, merong magsusuri ng mga reports of side effects, and then they will determine whether the vaccine caused it or it's really just part of background rate.
Siguro, attorney, ituloy-tuloy na natin kasi maganda yung discussion
There are
natin.
questions as well. For those, let's say, who take maintenance medicines on blood thinners or something, are they not eligible to take the vaccine? Is there something in the medicine that they take that will prevent them, or there will be adverse side effects if they do
Okay,
have.
attorney, I missed the first half of your question, but from what I understand, you're asking about specific if a person is taking specific medicines,
Yes,
can
yes,
I get the vaccine? No.
yes.
So right now, in general, there's only one contraindication, like absolute contraindication to getting any of the vaccines. And that is a severe form of allergy happening after a first dose of vaccine. Okay? So, nakakuha ka ng Sinovac, the first dose, you developed what's called anaphylaxis. So, bawal ka na sa second dose. So, kung first dose rollout pa lang tayo, ideally, walang bawal na makareceive ng bakuna.
I
No?
see.
Kasi wala pang, nobody really knows who's allergic and who's not. In the same way that as a kid, when you start eating fried chicken, you don't know if you're allergic and then you just find out. Kasi biglang magsi-symptoms ka di ba? So, right now, ang contraindication, the only bawal is a severe form of allergy. But there are some conditions na dapat to watch out for and maybe not get the vaccine temporarily. So ano yun? First trimester pregnancy, patients on active cancer chemotherapy, no, kailangan silang kumuha ng clearance from their doctors. Patients on high-dose steroids, maybe kailangan ibaba mo na yung steroid dose nila bago sila magpapakuna. What else? So there's a whole list of, meron pala ako nun dito. Slide 9. Slide 9, please. All right, just focus on the right side. No, so ang do not vaccinate, nakalagay lang dyan is age and allergies. Okay? Yung tinatawag na deferral, meaning you can't get it now but you can later on, is kapag may symptoms ka, may ubosipon ka, dapat nasa bahay ka lang. Pag may COVID exposure ka or quarantine ka, dapat hindi ka muna makakuha ng bakuna. If you got COVID, no, or you got convalescent plasma, etc., so dapat hindi muna. Pero eventually, pwede. Healthcare workers in the first trimester, dinidiscourage ng DOH, pero sa Amerika, they've done it. No? If you received the vaccine in the past 2 weeks, also do not get vaccinated yet. But the key word there is yet, because eventually you can get vaccinated. For specific diseases, you need clearance. Autoimmune diseases like lupus, HIV, cancer, transplant, high-dose steroid treatment, or pag terminally ill. No, you need to talk to your attending physician and get clearance. And then if you have a history of allergies to any other medication or food product, etc., it might be useful to consult an allergy specialist to help you navigate the decision of whether you can get vaccinated or not. But hindi bawal. You can get it. If you're taking medications, okay lang. Pwede. If you're taking blood thinners, pwede pa rin. Pero dapat sabihin mo dun sa magbabakuna para gagamit siya ng smaller gauge na needle. That's it.
So Doc, on the last question, on the question of allergies, if you have allergy rhinitis, for instance, are you also part of those na cannot take the vaccine yet?
No, you can get it. You can take the vaccine.
Doc, there's a question, no? Why is there too much opposing views on ivermectin? Did I say that right, Doc?
Ivermectin. Yes.
Ivermectin.
Yeah. All right. Ivermectin is very controversial. Very controversial. There's a camp that's very, very convinced that it works. But it's based on what's called anecdotal evidence. So there are some doctors that say, binigay ko to sa napakaraming pasyente, lahat sila gumaling, lahat sila ganun, no? Or wala nagka-COVID. dahil umiinom sila ng ivermectin. But we go back to the concept that's used in, for example, in determining the side effects of a vaccine. No, if you do not compare, say, yung example natin kanina on diarrhea, di ba? If you have a group of people who were vaccinated and they developed diarrhea and you have nothing to compare it with, how will you know na it's part of just the routine, baka just due to chance. Okay? In the same way that if you give a vaccine at nag-fever, pero wala kang comparator group, paano mo malalaman na the vaccine really causes the fever? Baka nagkataon lang. So the problem with ivermectin is, kasi sa amin, as professional, kasi ako po part ng PSMID, part rin ako ng PCP, ng Philippine College of Physicians, and eventually, a larger organization, I'm a member of the PMA. No? And whenever we analyze products that we will recommend to patients, we look for data that shows definitively that a product works, no? And usually that means that a product works after it has gone through a clinical trial. There has to be a comparator. And meron kami mga tinitignan na features of the study. We look for evidence of bias. No, pag sinabing bias, baka mamaya it's skewed towards or against a specific outcome. Okay? So, may characteristics yung mga clinical trials na yun na kailangan makita namin. And before we say, okay, this is a reliable study and we can believe the results. No? Tapos, if those results show gumagana talaga yung produkto, then fine, we will recommend it. The problem with ivermectin is all the studies that support its use either poorly designed yung trial or walang comparator, meaning anecdotal evidence lang. Ako po ay also working with what's called the consensus panel, yung clinical practice guidelines. No? So, kami po, they presented us the evidence and we tried to determine kung the evidence shows promise or not. No? And out of the many, many different studies on ivermectin, parang 6 lang yung may good design. May good design na pwedeng paniwalaan. And dun sa 6 na studies na yon, lahat po yon pinapakita walang effect. Walang effect si ivermectin na sinasabi nila na nakaka-protect, na nakaka-treat ng COVID. Pero sinasabi rin po namin na kung magkakaroon later on ng well-designed trial and it shows that it's effective, bakit hindi namin i-approve? Diba? Ba't hindi namin i-recommend? So the door is not closed on ivermectin. But as of this time, because of the absence of evidence, we are not able to recommend it as professional societies. And ako personally, as a doctor, I do not recommend it to my patients because walang evidence pa.
Doc, can the current COVID-19 vaccines address yung concerns brought by yung mga bagong variants na naririnig namin, Doc?
That's an important question, and unfortunately, there's not a lot of data on that yet. Sinusuri pa. But from the little data that we have, it seems that most of the vaccines work against the UK variant. And then it seems to be that yung South Africa variant, medyo poor ang performance ng some of the vaccines. There's a newly described P3 from Cebu, and we do not have a lot of information about that yet. So mahirap sagutin yung question na yan until we know more. No? But the more important thing to remind people of is the way to prevent you from getting the variant infection is the same way for you to prevent getting the normal or previous variant of COVID. It's the same. hand hygiene, mask wearing, physical distancing, etc. So, hindi magbabago yung i-recommend namin na prevention method.
So, Doc, we frequently hear about herd immunity. So, how can we really achieve herd immunity with vaccination? And in your opinion, can this really put a stop to the pandemic?
Okay, so we need to define first what herd immunity is, and I'm trying to look if I. Okay, can we show slide 4? We have time, no? May time check dito, 8:54 naman. Okay, herd immunity, ano bang ibig sabihin talaga ng herd immunity? Take a look at the top 3 panels, and that's a naive population, meaning a community where they've never encountered, say, chickenpox. Chickenpox ang example natin. So, in this barangay, wala pang nagkabulutong ever. No? So, wala silang immunity against it. So, if someone sick with chickenpox, the guy in red, enters the community, madaling kakalat yung chickenpox kasi walang protection eh. Di ba? Now, consider the bottom 3 panels. In this community, marami ng protektado or maraming nabakunahan. Okay? So, yung mga yellow, yun yung vaccinated or recovered. So, if a guy with chickenpox goes into the community, mas mahirap na i-spread yung infection kasi maraming protected. As a result, and this is herd immunity, as a result, itong mga guys in blue on the bottom right panel, dahil susceptible sila for some reason. Either they have cancer, can't get the vaccine, or they're young, or they're pregnant and can't get the vaccine, etc. Whatever the reason, they derive protection from the overall level of immunity in the community. No? So yung indirect protection, that's herd immunity. Now, it's estimated, if you will move to the slide 5, it's estimated that to achieve herd immunity for COVID, we need to vaccinate 2/3 of the population. So again, it's either vaccinate or people need to get sick and recover. No? So there are 2 ways to achieve herd immunity. Either you get people sick, all of the people in the community get sick and you're all protected, or you vaccinate people. But if you allow people to get sick from COVID and you have a mortality rate of 2%, for example, no, in a group of 100 million people, ilan ang mamamatay bago ka maka-achieve ng herd immunity? Diba? So the fastest and most effective way to get to herd immunity is to vaccinate 2/3 of the population. So right now, wala pa tayo sa kalingkingan. Nasa mga 500,000 pa lang yata tayo, healthcare workers pa lang. And the government is targeting to vaccinate 70 million people by the end of the year, no? For us to achieve herd immunity. We're hoping that we achieve that or we get to that level, no? Pero parang nababagalan kami dun sa dun sa progress.
So, Doc, I was thinking, diba, Sweden, they use that model where they allowed people to go out and to
Yeah.
achieve herd immunity. So now
Didn't
I'm
work.
thinking
Ang
that
taas ng deaths nila.
that approach.
Yeah, hindi yun gagana sa atin kasi hindi strong enough ang natin, healthcare system. Ngayon nga lang may surge of 8,000 cases a day, hindi na kaya ng ICUs natin. Diba?
So, finally, Doc, the the most important question here is, should we get vaccinated?
Okay. Yes. For several reasons. Number 1, vaccines are safe. No? Vaccines are safe. Kahit po abbreviated yung pagsusuri ng data, the data shows that walang side effects na worrisome ang vaccines. And yung mga deaths that occurred in the clinical trials and in the real world when nung ni-roll out siya, wala pa pong napoprove na due to the vaccine. No? So no deaths. It's safe. And even if the vaccine efficacy for COVID is not so good, I already talked to you about what vaccine efficacy really means. But more importantly, it will protect you from severe COVID. So, um, maganda yung data, yung vaccine efficacy against severe COVID. So, the concept is, instead of a leon na infection, magiging parang kuting na lang siya na infection. No? I got that from my mentor, si Dr. Salvania. So, when you get vaccinated and you get sick of COVID, more likely than not, you will just develop a mild infection rather than go to the ICU. So that's good. That's good outcomes pa rin to get the vaccine. No? Pangatlo, not only do you protect yourself, but you protect your loved ones. Okay, so you contribute to the level of immunity in the community, and finally, you help our nation get to herd immunity. So when we reach herd immunity, then it's safe to sort of ease up on the restrictions that we have now. No, you can go to the beach, you can go to the movies, etc. Because more likely than not, everyone around you is already protected. That can only happen if a significant proportion of the population is vaccinated.
Oh, thank you, Doc. I think this your talk tonight has clarified a lot of misconceptions, and at the same time has clarified important things about vaccination and how important it is for most of us to be vaccinated. So we thank you for your time and for sharing your knowledge with us and with the viewers of our show Life Matters. So thank you again, and also thank you for all of you of our frontliners for doing a good job in protecting us from COVID-19.
It was my pleasure, and I really hope na for those who are undecided, they they tonight they chose to go to the yes column rather than the maybe column.
So thank you again, Doc.
Thank you, Doc.
So thank you for all of our viewers for joining us tonight for another relevant and timely episode of Life Matters. So this is Attorney Justin Buduan. And
And once again, this is your Tito Ren. Oh my God. Do I really have to
so
say Tito Ren every night? Every Wednesday na?
yeah. So before we
Utos si
end,
Direk. Utos si Direk. Sabihin ko daw Tito Ren.
we're
Wala ka
used
bang mga
to
shoutout? Wala ka bang shoutout, attorney?
um
Maraming makulit sa Viber dito. Kanina pa ako
I think
natatawa.
you have more people who want you to shout out than me. So
Oo,
shout out to the
sige.
legal team.
Oo, ito idadaos natin yung mga shoutouts natin sa Bicol Group, sa teritoryo rin ni Sir Charlie, Sir Gat, syempre kay Sir Aris, and the head office basketball group sa pangunguna ni Attorney Carlos na kung ano-ano ang sinesend sa akin sa Viber kanina pa. Oo. But kidding aside guys, sabi nga ni Doc Carl kanina, sana yung mga nasa maybe, no? Nasa maybe pa na group magpunta na doon sa yes. So para malabanan natin ng sabay-sabay itong pandemic na pinagdadaanan natin. Right, attorney?
Yes. I also shout out to Sir York and Dr. Mildred. So thank you everyone. This is Attorney Justin Buduan again saying do take care, strictly follow health and safety protocols, and always stay safe because life matters.
Life matters. Bye guys.